If this is recording. Hi peeps. Just saw the Anton Together for Peace discussion and listened to that, and I wanted to talk about once again it just seems like an in-depth, never-ending critique about Anton, and that I have to be incredibly subtle and very distinct about why it is and how it is I'm disagreeing with his approach. Otherwise, I just look like a parasitic ass, right? And it has taken me a very long time, and I finally am seeing how he's reiterating his notions and putting them forth, but he's doing so in such a reiterative style as if he's trying to get people to become convinced of what it is he's saying. Now, this doesn't mean that he doesn't have value socially and that he's not provocative in terms of how it is he can guide our considerations and our thoughts. I grant all of that over to him. But it's when he's seriously making an argument with this sort of, I'm going to shake my head at whoever would disagree because they seem absurd. And so what I do is I automatically think, God, first of all, he's so bounded into the notion of Heidegger's ontology and Sartre. Heidegger's beingness and Sartre's nothingness, right? But his approach to, let's say, the atheist-theist discussion and his own lack of ability to fall to an atheistic side. He'll give all the attributes as to why he is atheist, but he won't succumb to the absenting process that he believes somehow all atheists are at fault. So he's going to presume the paradigm of the atheist as somehow being aligned with his assumption of what it is the atheist is thinking. Now, I need to make a distinct comparison as to what I think he is seeing and use his own words as to another one of his arguments as a comparative tangent to relate back to why it is he is seeing the atheist argument and the absenting process from a particular vantage point, and then making an assumption off of that, and his dissertation, his whole general modality flies down this routed line that somehow he keeps basing on what I think is a cherry-picked history of authorship. Now, this is only on this particular topic, and I'm not trying to undermine. Of course, I couldn't. Everything that he says, I agree with a lot of what he says, but consider the idea of Anton going to see the Venus de Milo in person and having a conversation with the curator at the museum. Because he does speak of theology and its connection to art, but I think he would do so in a different manner than I'm going to present here. Now, the Venus de Milo historically is known, it's accepted, we're taught, and there's evidence of, that the Venus de Milo used to have a full body. It used to have arms, and it used to have a head, and that over time the head and the arms were broken off, right? And so consider the Venus de Milo before the arms and heads were broken off, and then consider the outline of where the arms and the hands might be. And there's science that speculates as to where this would be, but consider the outline of that, right? And now consider the Venus de Milo in presence, absent the arm and the head, right? Now Anton keeps on, it would seem, assuming that somehow that the outline of where the arms and the heads were creates this vacuum. Like let's say the arm is now analogous to theocratic belief or a god, right? And that the removal of the arm is analogous to atheism. Arm, the removal of arm. Now he also mentions vegetarianism, right? You aren't what you don't eat, you are what you do eat, right? So he keeps pointing once again to this outline in that vegetarians now assume that the arm is like meat, right? And that vegetarians are saying, well, we're going to remove the arm. We're removing this part of this, and we're saying, I'm vegetarian. I no longer eat meat, right? And now the reason I'm doing this is because Anton wants to assume that there's a social history that the atheists are somehow not filling in, and having to do with property and property rights, and he keeps tying in everything that he views as being bounded to Abrahamic religions or maybe theocratic histories in general, either based off his reading, but I believe it's just assumptive, right? And that somehow the atheist, by not having the arm there, by claiming the atheist, needs to then speculate as to what the outline of the arm is for Anton's sake, because Anton insists that it must be that way. Now this is where I think there's a disjuncture going on, and the analogy fails. This is where Anton's whole paradigm, I think, fails. Okay, the atheist is not in the museum with the Venus de Milo. The atheist is at a piano with the bust of Beethoven, right? The bust of Beethoven is sitting on the piano, right? Now, the bust of Beethoven historically, and we know this, it never had a body, right? We could be creative and draw a body outline, but it never had a body. There's never evidence of it to have a body. Art history shows that the history of busts never were to have a body. They were to show off, in terms of an idealism, of a head. Now, one could speculate about the aesthetics of such a thing, but the atheist, it's so absurd, right? So it would almost be like going to the bust of Beethoven with Anton, and Anton saying, well, come on, you're an atheist. Let's look at the outline of the absent body of the bust of Beethoven and talk about what must have been in that body. Well, there must have been all of these property rights, and there must be all of this historic, social, civil text that now you're responsible to answer. As a matter of fact, the whole history of the universe question now falls in your lap. But now this history, these civil proprietary arguments, the history of the universe argument, to say atheist religion now, it's absurd, right? Now the whole argument is based on the absurdity, because now Anton is there with the atheist staring at the bust of Beethoven because he just got out of the museum with the Venus de Milo, having a conversation with the curator about the outline of the absence of the arms, right, of the Venus de Milo. So he takes this same argument over to the bust of Beethoven, and now he assumes that the atheist somehow must fill in all of this textual, historical, all of the questions that assume that the body of Beethoven must have been there, but is now absent. When the atheist is saying and reiterating, they are being dogmatic in the same way that Anton's very discourse is being reiterative in kind of this monkey see, monkey do approach, right? Now, so that's the critique, is that Anton is making this huge displacement between the absenting outline of the Venus de Milo and a non-absenting outline of the bust of Beethoven, and insists then that somehow, because of like taking a bite out of an apple, one must consider the apple and one must consider the bite. When the atheist is eating a cherry and they've got the whole thing in their mouth, right? And so this is my point. This is why I think that Anton keeps routing the argument through this assumptive ontological vantage point, and he's not seeing the absenting process, and that he's using the vegetarian not eating argument, not eating meat argument in much the same manner, where they're saying, you know, the vegetarians are saying, look, I would never eat an animal, right? The ones who would say, I would never eat an animal. It would almost be like going to an additive sculpture, somebody who is adding an extra arm onto the band, to Abraham Lincoln's statue at the Lincoln Memorial. Oh, look, they added another arm, and that arm is meat, and a bunch of people are eating it, and they're saying, well, look, it's just not natural. Let's just remove this spare arm, right? Okay, and then he gets into this notion of overdrawn expectations. That people, somehow, if you made a mistake in your life, or you had an expectation about how life should go, that you've overdrawn your expectation. You expected something that didn't happen. Now, if you entrusted somebody and they did you wrong, and that you have revenge on them, and you're condensed, and you keep recycling this hate or this reiteration, that somehow you must just let it go, right? You can't hold on to that. By holding on to that, you're being ego-based. Right, and that if you just forgive and use the Christ forgiveness, right, it's this notion that Christ consciousness is somehow this New Age ego forgiveness, where Together for Peace is approaching it from an entirely different vantage point. So Anton is going to admit his atheism in terms of the non-transcendent God, but retain it because he's caught up within the mythic absenting, outlining, and talking about the texts. Basically overlays and a macrame that outlines this absenting that he can't tell the difference between which kind of sculpture he's around. That's what it seems. Now, and then this idea that we're scared little monkeys seems like the perfect thing to keep reiterating and convincing students, right? Especially from an authoritarian top-down position, because if you can convince them that they're scared, then they're vulnerable, then whatever else you can feed them, they can keep on feeling like, well, I'm just a scared monkey. I am just this, right? It's as if the statement, we are scared monkeys in bags of skin, is the last thing to be said. He does not believe that there is always another next word to be placed on, another somebody there to convince. It's more like his notion that we are, how does he put it? Like ecstatic events that are happening. I mean, he doesn't say that. Accomplishments. We're temporary accomplishments, right? Both not in life, but even in day, we're achievements, right? That somehow the very perspective of us coming about, is somehow bounded in the must-be-edness of him saying this. And that's why I made the argument about the cosmos. Oh, we are the part of the cosmos. We are such a tiny little dot to speak about us being a part of, to take the ontology and the ontic and say, here's the cosmos and here's us and we're the part that's looking back on it, and to grant somehow this grand connectedness to it. It overrides the idea of saying the cosmos is the part of my psychology that is not aware of itself, or is the part of my being which is not aware of itself, right? The cup is the part of the cosmos that is not aware of itself. Everything else, other than humans, which aren't, the self-reflexiveness, right? It's this always trying to outline and follow and mimic, and then the regurgitative authorial histories of the extant, the existing, and the and the worldly. The animal has a world, but it doesn't exist. The humans exist, and then the cup is an extant, right? It's like he must follow these grooved lines, these authorial lineages. Now, this is why I love Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein did something great, like other authors, and they get honorary doctorates for coming at everything from not only a tangent, but from the outside. But Barklord wants to go back to school. I don't think that's the answer. I think to do something great and smack the world sideways with it is what's great. To take the whole history and the whole lineage, that these authorships, right, come up with your own recipe and work with the recipe, I think that's what's great. But this whole notion that one must follow and go down these lines, I don't know. To me, it's annoying. It's not unlikable, but it's just a baseline that's becoming the Anton baseline. So be it. I watched it. I'm guilty of watching the damn thing. Those are my thoughts on it. Thank you. Have a good one.